if we're all honest with one another, I think that during our dating years, we have made a mess out of our relationships. So today is a relationship talk, and there's no better way to do that than to make fun of yourself. And so I want to take you back to my first date. Anyone remember their first date here? How about online? You can go ahead and throw a hand emoji up if you remember your very first date. Well, let me tell you my first date, and give me some grace. I want you to see what I was working with at 13 years old. Go ahead and throw that up. I was a mixture between a chubby Harry Potter and luckily that day I didn't have a ton of acne, but in the weeks to come, it definitely showed up in my teen years. But that's what I was working with, so picture this. 13-year-old Matt got the guts to ask a girl out on a date. Her name was Sarah. Sarah was 15. I know, thank you. But I don't know if that made me really cool or if Sarah was just really nerdy to say yes to a 13-year-old, but we're just going to act like I was really cool. And so I remember the night we were going to the drive-in. I don't know if you've been to a drive-in. Drive-ins to me were the best first date possibilities ever. And we get someone to take us. We're getting there. We're driving there. And I remember we were like touching arms, which is a huge deal at 13 years old. I don't know about you, but I was probably shaking a little bit like, oh my goodness, never been this close to a girl. And the goal for me that night was this. If I could just hold Sarah's hand, success. I'd never held someone's hand before. And so I was like, 13, tonight's my night. If I make it to Monday, all my friends are going to think I'm the coolest thing ever. Matt held a hand with a 15-year-old. So we get there, and you do what you do at drive-ins, right? You get ready to watch the movie. You run in to get some snacks. I was the snack king. Clearly, you could see that from my photo. I loved to snack. And I remember I got nachos, and we got hot dog, and of course, you have to get popcorn. And so we're sitting there, and the date doesn't start off well. I already got nacho cheese on my shirt. If you've ever had popcorn, you know your hands are salty, sweaty, and buttery, right? So you don't know what to do. You're trying to get the popcorn off your hands. And finally, the moment came. I see her hand. I'm focused on this hand. It was kind of creepy. It sounds weird now. But I'm so focused on this hand that finally I was like, Matt, just do it. Just do it. So I start to reach over for the hand. In the middle of doing that, my drink spills all over, and I grab something other than her hand. Yeah, so think about this. You're 13, she's 15, you got buttery hands, you grab something other than her hand, butter stains clothes, and so the poor girl goes home with a butter stain on her shirt, and her mom's probably asking questions on what happened. Needless to say, that night was awful, it was traumatizing. There was still 15 minutes left of the movie, so she jumped one way, I jumped another, and we never saw each other again. I'm sorry, Sarah, if you're watching, you never got that butter stain out. But listen, it's real. And I don't know if I got any better at dating. I feel like dating is awkward. I think it's one of those things that has just got more complicated over the years. And I think we can all be honest right now in the room and from our campuses. Can we just be honest? Dating is complicated. And with every decade that passes, I believe it just gets harder and harder. It's not getting any easier. For me, it was a drive-in. Drive-ins are now a thing of the past. I know in my hometown there is still a drive-in. It's the same one, but I have scars. I'll never go back there. But drive-ins are a thing of the past. But now there's new things. We have Facebook, and let's be honest, Facebook is just a place where you stalk people to see what they do, what they're interested in, how they talk on social media, and it gives you a way out to be like, I already looked at them on Facebook, and I'm going to pass. We have things like Tinder, Bumble, Plenty of Fish, and my favorite, which I didn't know was a thing, Farmers Only. Who knew for my farmers, listen, I don't know if it's a Wrangler thing or a cowboy hat thing, I don't know what you're into, but good for you if you've been on Farmers Only. And then you have, to me, this was the worst, the dreaded group hang. And it might not sound tedious and fill you with anxiety, but for me, this is what a group hang did. I wonder if tonight's the night I'm going to finally meet her. In college, you get to college, hey, everyone's hanging out. And I would take time, make sure I look good, because I was like, okay, well, I want to be married. I want to go on dates, and maybe tonight's the night. And I was always filled with a little bit of angst before going to a big group hang, because let's be honest, they can be really complicated. And this series is going to give you a lot of insights on what dating looks like, because I believe there is a right way to do it. So over the weeks, we want to uncomplicate what's extremely complicated. So if you're taking notes, you can go ahead and get those out. You can get your Bibles ready. We're going to jump in to what the Bible has to say in just a minute. But something I've learned over the years is this. I've learned a lot doing youth group, going out on dates, talking with middle schoolers and high schoolers, talking with adults. I've talked to married couples, single couples, people who are newly singled or newly divorced, and this is what I figured out. Most marriage problems aren't marriage problems. This is what it is. What happens is that people with problems get married. It's not a marriage problem. It's not that you're single and there's a problem. It's most people have problems. And I'll be the first to say, let's get it out of the way, that I had problems and I'm still working through things to this very day. So I'm not a perfect person up here. I'm preaching to myself. From navigating my own relationship problems, I've seen a couple things like there is hope. So first and foremost, if you hear nothing else today, whatever situation you came into today, married, single, just starting to date, just got a divorce, whatever it looks like, there is hope found in a man named Jesus. I could end right there and I would feel good about my talk. But as I get ready to talk about my problems and what I worked through, I hope that there is just one thing that you take away today. But before I jumped into that, we have to give a nod to the big game today. I know AJ did this when he walked out, but where are my Eagles fans? Okay, Leland, Eagles fans. What about my Chiefs fans? Anybody in here for the Chiefs? Okay, MVP, okay. Well, I'm excited to watch the big game today. When I did youth group, I missed about every football game imaginable. I never got to see football for almost 7 years, and now being a pastor here, I actually get to watch football games. And something that I've noticed in football games, and maybe you've noticed this, is a coach will throw a red flag. And for a long time, I was like, okay, why does he get to throw a flag? And this is what a red flag actually means is, on the field today, you're going to see the refs, they're going to throw out a yellow flag because they've seen a play on the field that it was wrong, that maybe someone hit someone too early or too late, maybe there was some back talk, or maybe there was a fight, and you're going to see the refs throw a yellow flag. But then out of nowhere, you'll see a red flag fly into the screen. And this is what that red flag means. It means the coach wants to challenge the call that was just made on the field. He actually wants to send it back to the refs, and he wants them to put it under review. He wants them to put it under review. And today, I want to challenge the world's model of dating, and this is what I want you to do. I want you to put your relationships under review. Today, we're going to put dating under review. We're going to put marriage under review. We're going to put what the world says about dating under review. The cool thing about this is, as a coach, you can only see so much on the field. There's only a few things you get to see, a couple seconds, and they happen so quickly. So he has a whole team of coaches that have a better perspective. They can see the whole field, and they have screens filling their offices, and they can see every aspect of the game. And this is important. Those coaches make a lot of money, even though they're never on the field, because they have a better perspective on the field and on the play. And can I tell you this? Jesus has a better perspective on your dating relationship. He has a better view of your marriage relationship. He knows the play. He created it. In the very beginning, he created a play. And it's up to us to run it. And I want to say this. Would you trust him with the original play? Because when we put our dating relationships under review with how God created them, we're going to start seeing some red flags in our relationships that we need to look at. And so I want to jump into what the Bible has to say about dating. And you might be shocked to hear this. The word dating is nowhere to be found in the Bible. I've looked over and over. We've plugged it into web searches. Dating is not in the Bible. And at first I'm like, okay, well, I guess God doesn't care. But that's not true. But what we found is that dating is actually a new concept. Dating came around pretty much in the Roaring 20s. When it really took off was in the Roaring 20s because of the invention of the car. All of a sudden, you could get more places. You could see more people. It wasn't just the 15 or 20 people on your block. You could actually travel and get to know people and go and do things. And then if you go back even farther and you look at the Bible, all of a sudden what you're going to see is there was arranged marriages. Who's glad that we don't have arranged marriages anymore? But there are still some countries today that still have arranged marriages. And what that looks like, if you've never heard of this, is this. All of a sudden, the young man would work through his teen years, and he would learn a trade, and the young lady would work at home, and she would learn how to take care of her family, and then the parents would actually come together, not the kids. The parents would come together, and they would barter back and forth. And they would say, I'll give you 20 goats, a piece of silver, and a piece of land. And then all of a sudden, they got married. And let me tell you, I don't know how many goats I would be going for But I do know this, now being married for almost 6 years, this is for my wife. I know she's here. I'd give every goat in the world for you. I'd give every goat, that's my Valentine's Day I'm writing. Every goat in the world is for her. But let's get back to it. Let's not get sappy about goats. It's fine. But for me, this is what would happen. That's what we saw from the Bible. That was what we saw about dating and quickly into marriage. And if we look at what the world has to say, all you have to do is a short Google search. This is what it will say. Try it before you buy it. Practice makes perfect. Moving in together is way easier than having to get a divorce down the road. If you don't believe me, take some time today at lunch, type in dating. You're going to see all of these things. It becomes this thing where it's quick in and quick out. Let's date for a little bit, then break up and do it again next week. It's like test driving a car, and I believe that the Bible has something better to say than that. So if the Bible's got nothing to say and the world, we can't trust it, what are we going to do? What do we do? This week I got to sit down with Pastor Jeff and Pastor Kevin, and I love their leadership as we're talking about dating, marriage, and sex. This is who I want to learn from. And Pastor Jeff said it this way: in the absence of biblical principles, we should seek wisdom. In the absence of the Bible not specifically saying dating, then we look for wisdom. And whatever situation you find yourself in, you open the Bible and say, okay, they told me it was going to be in here. They said I could run to all these verses, but I don't see anything about my situation. In the absence of your specific situation, run to wisdom. That's not one of my points, but listen, church, we need to run to wisdom. So Proverbs 4:7. If you want to turn there, you can. Proverbs 4:7 says this: the beginning of wisdom is this, get wisdom. Though it costs all you have, get understanding. And I believe this is important because we need to get wisdom, because can I be honest, it doesn't come naturally to me. I didn't just wake up one day and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm wise all of a sudden. You know, school made me smarter, but did it give me more wisdom? I don't know. The conversation in the dugout definitely didn't give me wisdom. It was the how-tos, but there was no wisdom behind it. Church, we have to get wisdom because it does not come naturally. But I'll warn you, for everyone in the room, online, Leland, Porter's Neck, Carolina Beach, listen, wisdom comes at a cost. Wisdom is not free. If you seek to apply wisdom in your life, listen, people are going to call you strange or old-fashioned, outdated. In college, people would probably say, yeah, Matt was a little strange. He was a little old-fashioned because we watched how he went on dates and he was asking questions instead of just going with the flow, and he actually had a little vision for his life, and people would say that was old-fashioned and weird. And then when you bring sex into it, if I do just a little bit, it's super weird these days if you haven't had sex before you get married. And for me, wisdom comes at a cost. I know what the Lord told me, and I had to move forward. You will be looked at as different. It's just a warning to everyone in the room. When it comes to dating, can we all agree with this? Just agree with one thing with me. Normal is broken. I want you to be different. Be different today. For the high schooler in the room right now, be different. For the married couple in the room, you've been married 10, 15, 20 years, be different. For the person who's getting ready to go out maybe on their first date after this message, which I'm excited for you, I hope people start dating after this message, be different. Challenge the norms. Romans 12:2 says it like this: do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So with the time we have left, this is what I want to do. I want us to look at 3 dating mindsets that we need to put under review. 3 dating mindsets that we can put under review today. And here's the first one if you're taking notes. Define the goal. Define the goal. Today in football, both teams have a goal. And that goal started at the very beginning of the season. The goal is, let's win games, let's make it to the Super Bowl, and let's take home the trophy. But what's the goal of dating? For some in this room, it's to actually go on your first date. That's a great goal. For others in the room, maybe you've been married for a while. You know what the goal is? Start dating again. We never get to a place in marriage where we stop dating. So for you, that goal might be date again. For others in the room, maybe you've been hurt and you're like, you know what? I'm done with dating. The goal for you might be just try again, to trust again. But this is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal of dating is this: to find the person that's your forever. That's the ultimate goal of dating, as clear as I can make it, is to find the one that's your forever. So today, in the game, they know this. If there's no goal, we don't go. And for you in dating, if there's no goal, no go. As simple as I can say it. No goal, no go. If you or the person that you like have a goal, that's great. But if you don't have a goal, let me tell you this: you're not ready to date. Maybe he said to you, maybe a guy come and asked you out, and listen, guys are very good at this, and guys, here in just these next few minutes, I'm not trying to step on your toes, but mine have been stepped on a ton. Listen, guys are the kings of ambiguous invites, right? Hey, do you want to hang out? When did that start? Like, what does that mean? It's so open, like, hey, let's just go hang out. Girls, say no to an ambiguous invite. Raise your standards a little bit. Guys, actually ask a question and have a goal. Try something like this. Hey, there's a concert coming up this Friday. Do you want to go out on a date? Clear, specific, she knows where you're going. Other than that, you could take her anywhere. And if I asked you the question, hey, do you want to go on a trip? What would you ask me? Where are we going? Dating is no different. You have to have a goal. And guys, let me tell you why this is important. I'm picking on the guys. Guys, if you have a goal, then that means you have a vision for life and you're leading. In relationships, men, you are called to lead. And I'll tell you, I could save people a lot of money of counseling if they would just hear this. Men, it is an act of obedience. The Bible says you are to lead your household. And in dating is where it starts. Men, lead yourself, have vision, and lead your girlfriend and then your wife. And ladies, this is for you. Have a response. Oh, I don't know. Well, what are we doing? Well, I don't know. What do you want to do? And have a response. Be ready. A lot of times I'll hear different things in the office, and when I'm here, and I'll hear like, well, he asked me out, but I just don't know. Well, do you want to date? If you do, go out on a date. Well, I don't know if he's my forever. Well, you're not going to know if you don't go out on a date. If he had the guts to ask you out, have a conversation, and go out on a date. A lot of times, what I see is the biggest thing that you can do is just communicate with one another. Let's look at what Proverbs actually has to say in this. Proverbs 4:23. It says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And this spoke to me because I wish someone would have given me this little piece of wisdom. No one said this to me in high school. My mom missed it. I don't know if it was in a book and she just forgot to give it to me, but everyone listen to this. This is one piece of advice I can give you. You need to pad up. People are like, well, what does that mean? Today on the field, athletes are going to put on pads because they know the game is going to be rough. Relationships can be rough. And I wish just one person would have told me that relationships aren't just the honeymoon. It's a day-by-day thing. And that's why I love in Proverbs we see, above all else, guard your heart. If we look at this verse, it's actually a father speaking to his son. And if you know my story, you know I didn't have a dad growing up. No one had the conversation with me. The baseball team had the conversation with me. My school was too scared to talk about it. It was a small Christian school. My mom was too nervous to talk about it. Mom, I know you're watching. I don't blame you for it. But what I love in Proverbs, this is a dad speaking to his son. And above everything else, everything I've taught you, how to plow a field, how to have conversation, how to manage your money, above all else, he says, guard your heart. But everyone needs to hear this next piece. There's a difference between guarding your heart and having a guarded heart. Big difference. You can guard your heart, or you can put it in a cave, and it can be a guarded heart. And here's the difference. A person who guards their heart is careful who they give it to. They know that not everyone has their best interests in mind. To me, that's wisdom, to guard your heart. Ladies, if you're in the room and you don't give him everything on the very first date, and he's like, well, tell me about your childhood, and what's the scariest thing you've ever seen, and tell me your deepest dreams. Nope. It'll be tempting to do that, but this is bringing wisdom into it, and you can give him a little, but you don't have to give him all of it. But this is what a person says who has a guarded heart. A person who has a guarded heart keeps everyone at arm's length. A person with a guarded heart doesn't trust anyone. A person with a guarded heart will never let anyone make a mistake. I've had a guarded heart before, and I've dated people who have had a guarded heart. They're holding all their cards so close because they were hurt. And I want to pause for a second. I want to move away from the notes right now, and I want to say this. I actually want to pray for those who have been hurt and who have a guarded heart right now. So would you pray with me just for a moment? We're going to take a pause. We're going to do a little family time. Dear Jesus, right now in this room, online, at all of our campuses, God, there are people who have been hurt in relationships. They've dated for a season and the person all of a sudden just left and took a piece of them with them. There are people in the room who've been married for years and all of a sudden one day they woke up and their spouse says, I'm out. And God, I get it. We want to push everyone away. We want to get into a cave and we just want to cry. And God, I believe that there are times where that emotion is healthy and we need to work some things out with you. But right now, God, for everyone who can hear my voice, God, I ask that you would touch hearts today. That the person who has a guarded heart, God, that you would break off chains, you would break off any shame that they have, and that, God, today they will trust again. They will take it slow, and they will give what's healthy. But that, God, people will leave today knowing that you have their best interest at heart, and they can trust again. And everyone said, amen. Thank you for doing that with me. It's important for me when we get to moments in a message that we actually do the thing we're talking about other than just talking about it. Okay, so we've said this. We've said let's define the goal. Number 2, know the play. If you're taking notes right now, know the play. Proverbs says it like this, Proverbs 4:26. Give careful thought to the paths of your feet and be steadfast in all your ways. Today in the big game, regardless of who you're cheering for, if they run the wrong route or the wrong play, they're going to get destroyed. Their bell is going to be ringed, they're going to be on the ground, and the stretcher might come out if they don't know the play. It's important for all of us to know the play of dating. And God has a play if you choose to run it. God has a play. He knows how this thing was put together. He created it in the very beginning. But there are times that God's play doesn't make sense. High school, college. I remember I was like, God, I'm ready to date. I'm ready to do this. I'm going to ask her out tomorrow. And God said, hey, slow your roll. You're not ready yet. And I did it anyway. And God would be like, no, just wait. There's a country music song I think about, unanswered prayers. And, you know, how often we pray for this one, or please let this one be the right one, and this will be my forever. And God's saying, hey, not yet. Run my play. Run my play. God's play doesn't always make sense, but what did we hear last week? We heard that blessing follows obedience. Maybe you missed last week. You need to write that down. Blessing follows obedience. Be obedient in your dating life. Be obedient in your marriage. Start dating again. And it's one thing to know the play, but it's actually a different thing to run the play altogether. I know the play for my marriage right now. Do I choose that play every day? No. And when I don't choose the correct play, all of a sudden me and the Lord are having a heart-to-heart because I just hurt my wife. In dating, you might know the play, but it's a lot harder to actually run it. Everyone in this room, listen, if you are dating or getting ready to date, you've got to run the play. And God's play is incredible. Many relationships are ruined because they choose to run their own play. Let's look at what Proverbs 14:12 has to say. There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. When we choose to run our play, we miss the red flags that are happening all around us. We are missing the red flags that happen every day. So what I didn't tell you earlier, I said that we went to the drive-in, right? You guys remember? Old butter mishap. Let's go back to that. And what I didn't tell you was this. I left this part out. Guess who was driving the car that night? Mrs. George. Mama George was driving the car, and she saw the whole thing. She probably spilt something, too, when she was looking in the rearview mirror and saw what I just did. But we got to have a conversation when I got home, and I was like, how can I get in trouble? I didn't do anything wrong. But my mom had some great encouragement for me. She didn't use the word red flags. I'm not going to try to tie it in that carefully. But this is what she did say. She said, Matt, at the end of the day, what was your goal? She did ask me that, and I said, well, I was trying to get to her hand. And she's like, okay, you're pretty far off from where hand, yeah. I was pretty far off. But she said, well, what do you want to do? And I told her, and we sat down and we had a conversation, and she was like, Matt, relationships are not about what you can get, it's about what you can give. And that was earth-shattering to me because I didn't know that. I was trying to get something, and in relationships I had to learn there are things that I'm supposed to give and not just get. And so in a way, she told me, anytime you're in a relationship and you're going to get something, that's a red flag. It was a red flag. And so what I thought would be fun is if we looked at a couple of red flags. And, this week I found this game online called Red Flags. I do not endorse this game. Everyone hear me. I don't endorse this game. There are a few cards, probably half of them, that are not appropriate. But I went through every card, and I pulled out the ones that I thought were great. Now, what you don't need to do is raise your hand if one of these red flags is you. If you want to, please go ahead. I'll be honest with the ones that are me, that apply to me. Here's the first one. I'll save that one for last. That was a good one. Somebody shuffled the deck up here. Okay. First one is this. Red flag number 1. Only speaks in sarcasm. You know who you are. I don't get you, if that's you. Here's one that hits close to home. Has never spelled a word correctly. Funny story, I think it was date 5 with my wife. I brought her this great gift. It was summer. It was our first summer together dating. I brought a towel and a massage, a new water bottle. Anyone want to guess what my wife got me before? She got me a book on grammar. And she brought it to our first date, and she actually took the time to go through and highlight areas that I needed to get better. And it was the theirs and the twos. And let me tell you, I still have the book, and I've never opened it. So I have not got any better, but it could have been a red flag, but I loved her heart behind it, and we had a conversation in the car. The next red flag, it puts air quotes around every word they say. There's some people on our staff that does this one. I'm not gonna tell you who, but open mouth kisses their pets. I have witnessed it. People on our staff, yeah. This one is for the ladies. Listen, this is a red flag, and guys, I'm sorry, I've struggled with this as well, but has a half beard and absolutely refuses to shave it. Shave it. Just shave it. Couple more. This is a serious one. Can't keep a job longer than 20 minutes. Brings mom on first date. I've done it. 2 more. Texts exclusively in emojis. We got to stop with the emojis. Too many emojis. I throw them in when I don't know how to spell something. So if you get a text from me and I don't know how to spell it, that's why. And last one, and this one hits close to home for me, repeats your jokes but louder. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why this is such a red flag for me. Because I am not funny. I am the serious person that's always like this. Today I'm really trying. So I've got a lot of laughs, which is good. But I'm not the funny one. So if I say one funny thing but you say it louder and better than me, you're dead to me. Because I had one shot to say something funny and you did it. And so those are some fun red flags. But let's be honest. Let's talk about a couple real red flags. A couple real red flags that I believe all of us need to pay attention to. Whether we're dating, maybe you're in marriage, because red flags don't mean you break up. What a red flag does is it sees the red flag, it puts it under review, and it has a conversation. So if some of these actually apply to you, that's okay. I just want you to put them under review. And the first one is this. Maybe you're in a relationship and you see that there is a financial red flag. Ladies, gentlemen, have a plan with your finances. Make a budget. Know where your money's going. Don't be the person that says, are you paying? Am I paying? Well, can we split it because none of us have money? Have a financial play. The next one, big one for me, right? Spiritual red flag. Spiritual red flag. These are the outs that couples will give. Well, I know when we get married, he'll actually go to church with me. Well, she said if we get married that she'll let the kids come and that maybe she'll come when she can, maybe Easter and Christmas. Spiritual red flag. Identify it, have a conversation about it, and put it under review before you get married. That's a big one. There's the reputation red flag. Well, you just don't know him like I do. He never pops off like that. I'm so sorry. Like, hey, you just don't know him. Like, give him a couple more weeks. Give him a month. And then this is what we say. I know he did that when we were dating, but, we've gotten married and it's getting a little bit better. Like, you just don't know him like I do. Huge red flag. People can make mistakes, but at the end of the day, have a conversation about the red flags. Their reputation matters. There's a family red flag. How does he treat his family? How does she treat her family? Now, I'm not saying, maybe they've come from a hard past. Listen, if you knew my story, my family is messed up. But there's a way to have a messed up family and still honor them when you're talking about them. There's a way not to let everything that happened in your past come into your present with your spouse or the person you're dating. What happened to you as a kid is not the person you're dating's fault. How do you talk about your family? I love my mom to pieces, but yet I had an abusive dad. But at the end of the day, I still give him honor because at the end of the day, I wouldn't be here without him. So for you, what's the red flags when it comes to their families? Because listen, honorable people honor people. Respectful people respect people. Kind people are kind to people. I married my wife for a number of reasons. But one of those, she's one of the kindest people you'll ever meet. Whenever we're going through to a restaurant or going through a line at a grocery store, she knows this. She cares about the person on the other side of the table. She'll ask him a question. Hey, how long have you been doing this? Hey, she was a teacher. Where'd you go to school? That's awesome. She'll ask questions. She cares about people, and that was super attractive to me because you know what? The most important thing to me in a dating relationship is the person's character. We all think it's chemistry. Yes, you need to have some, but character trumps chemistry. So we've talked about defining the goal. We've talked about knowing the play, and here's the last one. Don't rush. Don't rush. Speed kills in relationship. If you rush it, you're going to ruin it. Too exclusive too fast, too physical too fast. You're always trying to rush it. What's the next step? How close can I get? Age-old question I'd get in a youth group and still to this day. How far can I go physically without God being mad? I've asked it plenty of times. But then all of a sudden someone gives me a line and I get as close to it as I can without going over it. But I think that there's a better question that we can be asking. Better question says this: how far should I go with someone who's not my spouse? Do you ever think about that? Because usually we only think in the moment that we're in. What's the need I'm trying to get met today? We're never thinking about the future. And that's why I said define the goal. Have vision for your life. And men, it starts with you. Here's the best question. How far do I want the person currently dating my spouse to go with them? I never thought about that when I was younger. When I was out for dinner with my friends, I wasn't thinking, man, I wonder what Catherine is doing right now with the person she is dating. But if I did, it would have slowed my roll with everyone that I ever dated. Don't rush the play because speed kills. Here's what Song of Solomon says. I love this book. It says, do not arouse or awaken love until the time is right. As we get ready to close, I want you to hear this. Sometimes what we want now blurs our vision for what we want most. Can I say that again to my Leland campus? Sometimes what we want now blurs our vision for what we want most. I think about my life dating, and I made a lot of mistakes. Let me be the first one to say. I used people. They used me, and I let them. There were red flags. We never put them under review. But then I moved here. And on the way to moving here, I'd actually taken multiple years off from dating. I rushed it about year 2, and I was like, okay, God, I'm ready to date. And I dated a girl, and quickly I got a check in my spirit, and I knew the Lord was like, hey, you're not ready yet. And I was like, God, it's been 2 years, and I can't tell her I'm breaking up with her already. It's only been a week. And the Lord was like, well, you have to. Here's my play, and you're not running it to the full extent that I told you to run it. And So we broke up, and thank the Lord she had grace because I was really honest with her. I told her I rushed the play. She was an incredible girl, but I wasn't ready yet. And so I'd had pretty much 3 years off from dating, and I moved here, and I was a little bit older in life, and my goal was to get married at 19 like everyone else in my family. Everyone got married young, and by the grace of God, all of them are married and have healthy relationships. But why not me? Why couldn't I be the kid that got married at 19? And that wasn't the play God had for my life. So I moved here to Wilmington, and I only know maybe 5 people, and I'm working for a church here in town, incredible church, but the average age of people was about 75. So the dating pool was pretty small for me, and they were having a line dancing night, and let me tell you, I hate dancing. I am not a dancer, as you can tell. I'm not funny, and I don't dance. And so line dancing came, and I said, well, I won't dance, but I'll take photos. And I didn't even own a camera. I don't love taking photos. I don't take photos, but I said, give me that camera. So I'm taking photos of all these people, and all of a sudden, a group of college age or people that just graduated college kind of came into the room. I guess they heard about it, and I was like, okay, this is cool. So I was taking pictures of them to show people, hey, we're a cool church. Please come to it. And one of my friends walked up, and she introduced me to Catherine. And we danced one dance. I gave her one dance, and it was a slow dance, and we talked in those brief 4 minutes, but it felt like I knew her. We talked about life, talked about what she did, that I just moved here, and then the dance was over, and I got awkward because I'm still awkward, and we found ourselves at the same house, and everyone was going to watch a movie, but I didn't say anything to her, but in that moment, I still accepted her on Facebook, right? Like I found her, and I asked her to be my friend on Facebook, because that's what you do. And then the next day came, and I was faced with a question. Do I reach out to her because I felt something, or do I leave it alone? And I left it alone. And I didn't speak to Catherine for 3 months because I went back and forth with God, and I said, God, am I ready yet? Sure, there were nerves, but I was processing with the Lord. Is it time for me to date? And finally, I felt like I got the go-ahead. That, and she had posted a picture on Facebook with her and another guy. And so I was like, if I'm going to do this, I better hurry up. So yes, it was the Lord, but yet I saw something that I was attracted to, and I felt I had never felt before. And so I reached out to her and asked her to go to a softball game, and she couldn't make it to that, but she's like, we could do breakfast. And so we started to date. And throughout the years, you'll see behind me that we had some fun. We would go to high ropes courses, and there was a season where she brings out the fun in me because I'm not normally the goofy person, but when you find the one, they bring out things in you didn't know was there. And then we traveled to Oregon to see my family. I think we were 8-9 months into the relationship. I could be wrong on the dates, but we went out and I introduced her to my family, and they fell in love with her. Family matters. We don't hang on every word they say, but we let them have some input into our lives, and we just had fun. We got to know each other. But can I be honest? And she would attest to this. There were red flags that we had to work on. A red flag doesn't mean that all of a sudden you go break up with a person or there's no goal with a person. That's not what a red flag does. A red flag says, let's put it under review. And we had a night where there were red flags thrown. And I think that we didn't say a word to one another as we were driving home. And I was supposed to take her home, but I said, hey, I would like you to come over. I would love to us to pray, right? I was like, we need to pray about this because if we don't, I believe we're going to break up. So we got to my house, we stayed in the car, and we had a prayer with gritted teeth saying, God, I'm really angry right now, but if you don't help us communicate, tonight is the end. Because red flags were thrown that night. But can I tell you, we addressed those red flags, we put them under review, and we had a communication. And then a couple months later, we walked down the aisle together. And that's what real joy looks like. When you do it the right way, when you run His play and not your own play. When you say, I don't care that everyone has made fun of me all my life because I wouldn't have sex with this person and I wouldn't have sex with that person. Guess what? It's still real. A man and a woman can save themselves, and we saw it right there where we waited for our wedding night. And I believe that's worth applause because it doesn't happen very often. And I know right now you can say that story's great, but Matt, where was this 3 years ago or 8 years ago or when I started dating? And I'm not dumb. I know what the enemy is saying to some of those right now. He's saying, well, you messed up. You better check out now. God is a God of hope and a God of restoration. What happened to me? It was a hard upbringing. Of course I wanted to have sex. God made a sex drive, and it's good, and He created it. But if you're in the room and you're like, Matt, but you just don't know my story, you don't know what happened to me, you're okay. He's a God of restoration. He's a God of hope. So if you find yourself today and you're listening to me, if you're the single person, this is what I want you to hear. Lead yourself, get vision, and go out on a date. Lead yourself, get vision, and go out on a date. Maybe you find yourself single again. Matt, I've tried. I've been on dates. We dated for 6 months or a year. I actually had a ring on my finger, but then we broke up. Can I tell you this? Don't give up hope. Unguard your heart and trust again. And you might be nervous. You might be scared. I would encourage you, get into a small group of people who can hold you up on the days you're scared and will push you forward on the days you don't want to move forward. It's a time for you to unguard your heart. For my dating couples in the room, you now know the play, but now you actually have to run the play. You have to do things that are different. You have to look different. Lead yourselves. Men, lead the person you're dating and address the red flags because they're going to come. And the last one's really simple. If you're married in the room, go on a date with your wife. Take her somewhere and just let it be spontaneous. Start to date again, because dating is healthy. You're never going to know it all. Maybe you've been married 40 years. I bet you if you ask people who have been married 40 years, they'd say, man, I'm still learning every single day. I never want to stop learning about my wife. So I want to tell you that God sees where you're at. That He is a God of hope, a God of restoration. God can change a heart. He can make the wrong person a right person. But don't rush. God can fix any red flag that you've thrown yourself, that you've noticed. Put those under review. We're going to close with some prayer, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. And this is the youth group side of me. I love to stretch people. I never want you to break, but I want you to stretch. And church is a place where we're stretched in our thinking, in our mindsets. But this is what I want to do. We're going to say 2 different prayers. And the first one, this is who it's for. This is for the person in the room where you're single, but you want to date. As I begin to pray, I'm actually going to ask that you stand up. Have the guts to say, hey, I need this prayer. So in a second, as I start to pray, you don't have to do it until we start praying. I don't want to break you. I want to stretch you. The first group is the person that says, you know what, Matt, I want to date. The next one is for the person who has that guarded heart that says, I've dated, I've been hurt, I've been through divorce, I tried this once before or twice before. I want you to stand up too. For the third group of people, it's for my married couples who would say, you know what, we've been married, but we can do better, and we need to start dating again. So as I begin to pray, if any of those 3 are you, I want you to have the courage, be stretched, and say, God, I want to run your play. So let's pray together. Dear Jesus, right now, with every head bowed and every eye closed, if that thing that I just said, if you're single in the room and you want to date again, I would ask that you'd stand right now. If you're in the room and you've been hurt, you've been broken, you've guarded that heart, I want you to stand up right now. Across all of our campuses, people are standing up. For the married couple in the room that says, it is time for us to date again, I am going to be honest with myself. I don't know everything about him or her. I want you to stand up right now. God, you see everyone that is standing, and they took a risk right now, and they said, hey, I want to do this God's way. I want to date for the first time. I want to do it right. I want to run your play. I want to date again. God, I ask right now, you would be with that person that came today not knowing that this was for them, but it was for them to say, God's got your back. It's time to trust again. God has someone for you. And for every married couple that stood up, God, I ask that they would have the best year of dating they've ever had. Reignite a fire in their relationships. God, for those in the room that their sex life has been dead, we say and we call it forth that it will come back to life, stronger than ever before. this is a year where we're going to see dating done right. Everyone that's standing up, you can go ahead and take a seat for me. But everyone, please keep your head down, your eyes closed, and across all of our campuses, this is the most important part of the day. And you would say, man, this has been a great talk about relationships and dating, but I don't even have a relationship with the one guy that I know is the most important, and that's Jesus. And I would ask those people in the room, if that's you, if you're on that journey where you haven't met Jesus yet, listen, if you're going to be good at relationships, you need to have one with the person who created them. If you want to do this well, yes, you might date someone, but that's not the most important relationship in your life. It has to be the one with the man who created them. His name's Jesus, and he wants to have a relationship with you. He wants to walk with you so that you're never alone, so you never feel isolated. You know who you are in the room already because your heart's starting to beat, saying, I want that relationship. I've heard about it. It's been put on display for me. Well, today is your day to start a relationship with Jesus. And if that's you, will you pray this prayer with me? There's no magic words here. This is a conversation with you and Jesus. Would you repeat after me and say, Dear God, thank you for loving me. Today I repent of my sins. Today I put my trust in Jesus. I give you my life. I receive your Holy Spirit today. Give me the strength to live for you. Say this, say this. Say, thank you for saving me. And with every head bowed, no one's looking around. It's just me. This is family time. It's just me. If that was you today and you'd say, you know what, Matt? Today I made that decision. I said yes to Jesus for the very first time. As your pastor, I'm so excited for you. I want to celebrate with you. And I'm going to ask you on the count of 3 if you would just raise your hand and slip it up real fast on the count of 3. I want to acknowledge you. I want to see you. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Here at our Pine Valley campus, I see that hand at our campuses right now as hands are going up. Dear Jesus, you see those hands, and if you raise your hand, I would ask that you would actually keep it up. Someone on my team, they want to give you a card, and this card's important for me because I want to know your name. My team, we want to celebrate with you because this is the biggest and the best decision you've ever made. And so I would ask that you fill that out with the time that remains. But right now, can we put our hands down? And can everyone in this room, can we give it up for every person who just said yes to Jesus? Come on.